Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my entitled nightmare landlord hates me as a tenant. He constantly comes into my house and steals my car. Because he is a terrible drunk driver, he crashed my car and kicked in my door the next day. He then calls the police on me after I tell him to leave the property. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. Before I get into what happened, I feel like I need to address the whole debate with landlords going on at the moment. I know many people see landlords as a job that shouldn't exist because they are making money off of people needing a place to live. I'm aware that the profession of a landlord is a little bit controversial, and I would love to hear your opinions about them. Anyway, for this story though, I want to focus more on my landlord as a person than anything else, but I do agree that if I was allowed to rent my property through a different kind of system, this entire thing would not have happened. So I am renting an apartment and found that the landlord and me don't get along at all. It really shouldn't matter, but for some reason he wants to make it a personal thing. A few months after moving in, I noticed some problems that, according to my lease, was his responsibility to get fixed. I was not trying to be a problem, but when the stove stops working and the water coming out of the shower turns brown, that is not a small thing I can handle on my own. I was not doing anything crazy like calling him to change the light bulbs or unclog my toilet. These were really serious problems, and yet he was mad about it. He didn't want me as a tenant anymore and thought he could be nasty enough to make me want to leave. One thing he did was show up without any kind of announcement constantly to tell me that he had to do various things that were all lies. For example, taking measurements or having to do some kind of inspection. I would find him just looking around at my things before anybody comments though. Yes, I know the landlord has rights to do things like this, but in the lease he is meant to give me notice unless it is an emergency. One day though, he went too far. I went out with my friends and they picked me up, meaning my car was left in its spot. My car keys were also left in my apartment. I came home to the car missing and was horrified that it had been stolen. I quickly ran upstairs and found that the keys to them were missing and certain things were not in their proper place. Before I called the police, I get a call from them claiming that my car was in a wreck and the driver fled. I tell them that nobody was meant to be driving my car and was told I had to come down to the scene to clear things up. I got an Uber and went where they told me to find that my car had been basically wrapped around a tree. I filed a report that the car had been stolen and they were going to look into things. Back at home that night, I hear my landlord on the other side of my door. Landlord, OP, let me in. Something happened when I borrowed your car. He was absolutely drunk. Me, leave right now before I call the cops. You stole my keys and crashed my car. Get out of here. He ended up using his foot and kicking in my door, letting himself in. He was waving my car keys in front of his face like he was trying to give them back to me. I could not believe what he had done and also could not follow his drunk story. He apparently borrowed the car to get groceries, and since he owned the apartment, he had the right to borrow things from me. At least that's what he thought. I yelled at him once again to leave, and that is when he starts to get violent. He takes a few swings at me before I push him down in self-defense. I managed to get him out and the door was luckily able to be closed and locked. He did not break any of the hinges and it was only the door lock he broke, not the top lock. I heard him on the other side of the door calling the police and telling them that he was a landlord and one of his tenants was being violent and he wanted them removed. The guy seriously attacks me, steals my car, and then has the balls to call the police because I kicked him out of my home. I don't open the door again until the police are knocking and telling me that I need to let them in. They talk to us both and then tell me what the situation is on their end. Officer, okay, so while you are a renter, he owns the property. Physically assaulting your landlord randomly can result in eviction. So you need to leave with us now and then you can come back tomorrow with a police escort in order to get your things. Me, wait, what are you talking about? He is the one that attacked me. He broke down my door and even stole and crashed my car. Officer, do you have any proof of your story over his? Without that, we need to side with the legal property owner. Me, I got a camera set up in this room. It should have caught everything from today. Landlord, I never said you could install a camera in here. I want you out. Officer, quiet down. We will see the video and go from there. Can you take him outside for a few minutes? I don't need another fight breaking out. The landlord is led outside while the officers look at the video. It's actually my first time watching it as well, and you can see me clearly leaving the apartment. Then 10 minutes later, the landlord lets himself in, looks through my stuff and takes my car keys and then leaves. Then it shows the tonight of him kicking in my door and taking swings at me. It's clear that he is the problem, and now with proof the officers are able to help me. He is arrested for the car theft and I am told to come down to the station in the morning and fill out paperwork. To wrap things up, he was arrested and forced to give me the money the car was valued at so I could put it towards a new one. He was charged with grand theft auto, drunk and disorderly conduct, and finally drunk driving. His plea for me to be evicted was denied, and instead he was gonna have to pay for a new door since now mine was not up to code. Him going to jail though meant that he couldn't be the landlord anymore and was gonna have to sell the building to someone else. That landlord was not nearly as bad, and I never had an issue with the new one for the entire time that I lived there. Final note is, I know some people might be mad at the police for taking his side and trying to kick me out, but I understand. I got police in the family, and when they are out on a call like that, they are forced to do everything by the book. When they found out I was innocent, they were happy to arrest him instead and leave me alone. I don't know enough to say if having a landlord is beneficial in society, or if they are just a problem that we need to find a solution for. Either way, I hope that guy is never in charge of people again. He was sent to jail for a year, and I can only hope he did not try to take things that didn't belong to him there, because we all know how that would end. And yeah, once again, Ripe Stars, I would be really curious how a Karen or a Kevin, let's just say that's how they are called, would fare in prison. I don't think that this entitled attitude would fly over there, but who knows? I don't think any of my viewers have prison or jail experience, so I don't think any of you have any stories, but in case you do, let us know in the comments. I would be really interested in hearing how an entitled person fares in prison. And the next one is titled Boss Ruins Entire Company. So I, 37 female, was working for a homegrown company for 15 years. I first started as a sales associate and made my way up the corporate ladder. After 6 months of working as a salesman, or saleswoman, I got promoted to assistant supervisor until I became the supervisor and then got promoted to branch manager and then area manager after that. Several years later, the head of the marketing department, the owner's wife, decided to recruit me to their team. I decided to give it a go since I was already feeling burnt out at the sales department. I asked my direct boss Debbie for her approval and to let her know of the offer given to me. She was not given a heads up by the bosses, by the way, they just decided to talk to me directly. Anyway, she gave me the go signal and I got the job in the marketing department as a graphic designer and was happy for a while. Although I got to work directly under the owner's wife, let's call her Brenda, who had a lot of episodes of shouting and throwing stuff at us whenever she doesn't like the ideas presented to her. I sucked it up because of my workmates who I've become close with. She was so terrifying to work with that we all feel happy whenever she's not around and we feel more productive as she's not breathing down our necks. Whenever Brenda is not around, the head of the HR department, let's call her Lizzie, would make it her personal business that we are all in our seats doing work-related stuff and not talking. She would also point out stuff in our office saying papers need to be put away or turning on all the lights despite us always saying we prefer working under dim lighting. Just small irritating things that ticked us off, but we just carried on. Cue the pandemic. Remember I said I was a graphic designer? Well, here is where everything becomes hell. We first worked in our homes and used WeChat for the logins. Aside from chatting in, we were also required to send out selfies of ourselves in our workstation to Lizzie. No problem. It was a small thing to do before we started work. Everything was fine and dandy despite all the backhanded comments Lizzie was saying, whether it was true that we are in our workstations or we could be outside. She claimed to have seen several of us at the grocery store during her leave, but never said who it was, so we just shrugged it off. I never left my house anyway, since I was living with my grandparents, my mother, my sister and her toddler plus an infant. So when we were asked to return to the office, resignation letters came one after another in my department until basically I was the only one left. Everybody got scared to go out since vaccines were not available yet as of this time. Since I was the only one left in my department, I was given the task of updating the website despite not knowing anything about it, managing all social media pages, all 20 of them, and doing the layouts for all social media channels, doing the product shoots to sell them online, assisting online customers, ringing up their purchases, performing ad hoc cashier tasks, going to the nearest courier to ship them out, which is, by the way, a 20-minute walk from our office, and doing all the main pages live selling from a 6-person team. It simply became just one person doing all the tasks. Why did I not just resign right there and then, you ask? Well, my mother was laid off from her job as a restaurant manager, and my sister's husband, who works overseas, had to cut back his hours due to the skeletal staffing they had to be placed under, just so no one gets laid off in their company. So my income, along with my sister's husband's monthly deposits, was the only money sustaining us for the time being. I barely take any breaks, and most of my tasks were being left undone due to the high volume of orders we've been getting online. I still made sure to do other tasks during off-peak hours, but I'm kept on my phone more frequently as customer inquiries are not dwindling down. Brenda promised me she would get someone from other departments to help me, but no one came. Lizzie told me someone is coming soon, but still nobody came. During this time, Brenda never went back to the office since she was afraid of being exposed and exposing her twins, both still toddlers, and her mother-in-law, who is a germaphobe. So she asked Debbie to step in and supervise me. Now, Debbie was a great supervisor. During my time with the sales team, she gave me stellar reviews, and I always passed our evaluation with flying colors. This time, however, she seemed out to save her own skin. Since she was from the sales team, she would look for other people to blame for the low sales. She, along with Lizzie, monitored me and played good cop, bad cop. Now remember, I was already doing the jobs of the whole department. I was a single person doing a 6-person job, never received any bonuses or a salary raise. I was earning just a little over $200 per month. I'm not in the US, but if I convert my salary to dollars, that's about it. During this time, they hired a new person to do the website. Let's call him IT, so updating the website was already off my hands. They decided to give this guy a salary of $600. $600. To take a single task off of my hands. I was hurt. I have been with the company longer and worked my butt off and did not even receive a $50 salary increase. That made me decide to start looking for a better paying job where I would be appreciated more. Now this IT guy looked up to me since I was older than him and also have been with the company longer than him. We became friends. I did not hold a grudge against him for getting a bigger paycheck than me, since it was not his fault. Lizzie thought they would get him to spy on me, but instead he became my inside guy. He would tell me that whenever I would leave my workstation to get water or relieve myself, Lizzie would immediately come and look for me. I know he is telling the truth, since this has been confirmed by both myself and our co-workers. One time I went to the comfort room and Lizzie followed me to make sure I was only going to the comfort room and not somewhere else to play hooky. Several times also she looked for me from the others, and when I would go to her office to ask if she needs anything, since they told me she's been looking for me, she would only say, "Oh, nothing, I don't need it anymore." Take note that this happened more than once a day. One day Debbie sat me down and asked me what was up and why I have not been performing my tasks very well. I stared at her. Surely she could not be serious. Me? Excuse me? Debbie, Brenda and Lizzie are concerned because you've been performing poorly. The social media pages are a mess. They have not been updated. Me, have you forgotten that aside from the old tasks I had, I've been doing more than I'm basically alone in the department? I have more tasks under my belt than I can manage. Debbie, yes, I did tell them about this. It is just that they are also concerned that you've been going out a lot. Me, yes, to deliver the items our customers order to the courier since we are not qualified for pickup. Debbie grimaces. Lizzie actually saw you in an establishment that's not the courier. Me, where? At the pharmacy? Well, pardon me for buying medicine for my headache instead of calling in sick for the day. Debbie, oh, I see. I guess she misunderstood. Okay, don't worry about the additional staff. Lizzie is currently interviewing applicants to replace those who left your department. I felt horrible. I felt like I had a CCTV on me all the time. I even felt that just going downstairs to get water was a crime. I was truly miserable, but all of my job searches were turning up nil. IT guy was the one doing the meetings with the other departments now, since I was too busy with the online orders. One time he told me of this conversation between Brenda and another department head, the boss's sister, Sam, who is Debbie's boss. Sam said, "Why aren't our pages being updated?" Brenda, "I don't know about OP." Sam, "Is she not working?" Brenda, she said she's busy. Sam, why? What is she busy with? Brenda, I don't know, in a sing-song voice while looking down at her nails. This was later confirmed to me by Lizzie's assistant, who is one of my work best friends, and all my former teammates from the sales department who were present during the meeting. I made a lot of friends on the sales team and they have remained loyal to me since most of the existing supervisors and assistant supervisors were trained by me. Boy was I mad. Now, during the pandemic we were required to fill up a form listing all of the tasks that we worked on. We would tick them off or put a note beside if it's still in progress, disapproved, approved, etc. We also had weekly meetings which I attended all the time just to let them know what I've been working on, and Brenda adding new tasks to me. There was no way she would not know what I've been working on. This spurred me to look for another job quickly and fast. Now, during this time I was able to get a part-time job where I worked 4 hours a day but still received twice my monthly salary. This allowed me to save up for a good computer so I can pursue my dream of being free of the shackles that bound me to my miserable job. I bought myself a computer, companies began hiring once more, and I started sending out resume after resume. As soon as I get home late in the evening, I was job hunting. I finally got accepted into a foreign company that paid me in dollars. I was offered more than twice my previous salary because of my skills, but now the start of the revenge. So I did not submit my resignation just yet until I had a job offer signed and sealed. I made sure to cover all my bases. Come a few days before Christmas, the GO was finally in my inbox. I was only too happy to sign it and send it back to my new company. Christmas morning, I gave my 2 weeks notice to Brenda, CC'd Lizzie and Debbie. I did not hear anything from them until the day after Christmas. Debbie then called me. I cannot recall the exact conversation we had, except I just told her that I've been offered a job with a higher salary. She did ask me if I'd be interested in staying if they matched the salary offer, to which I replied no, because I did not need to work in a toxic environment where I'm constantly being watched and scrutinized by the heads. She also told me that Brenda was panicking and was shouting at Lizzie, telling her to do something to make me stay. They both thought it was the best idea to have Debbie talk to me before doing anything, but anyway, I told her that my mind has been made up, which she respected, and told me that we'll see each other the week after New Year. Now, for my 2 weeks notice, I specified they would be covering all holidays, so by the time we went back to the office, I only had several days left to turn over everything. On my last day, we had a Zoom call with Brenda where I bade all my colleagues goodbye and wished them well. Lizzie jokingly asked me, "You really won't change your mind? Is that your final answer?" No, I won't change my mind. I don't see any problems with my leaving since apparently I have not been doing anything. The look on Brenda's face was priceless. I smiled at her and proceeded to walk to our server where we log out. I left the building with a spring in my step and my shoulders felt like a huge boulder has been lifted off. My mother and my sister even commented that I seem happier now since I got back to singing and whistling and dancing in my chair while working. Now all my friends give me updates once in a while. Lizzie's assistant tells me that several people were hired to do my tasks and that Brenda has been feeling frustrated. She's been asking other people who were in charge of some things and she would always fume whenever they would tell her that I was the one in charge. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I would say that is how you leave a company in style. If you have any interesting stories about quitting a toxic work environment, then please feel free to share your story either in the comments or on r/Ripe Stories on Reddit. The next one is titled, "We are going to honor your terms for our rental notice." Years ago, my husband and I had finally saved up enough for a down payment for a house and we were preparing to leave our rental. I think the lease had expired and we were on a month-to-month basis, but there are still regulations in our state regarding when we had to give notice. I talked to the property manager before our closing to see if there was any wiggle room on how much notice we had to give, since we didn't want to give the required notice only to have something fall through at closing. And then we would be out of a place to live. We had lived there for almost a decade and had always paid our rent on time and had otherwise been good tenants, so I thought they would be flexible with our notice and move out dates. The manager said she would ask the owners, and in a day or so she called to say that she was sorry, but they will not be flexible at all. They won't prorate a partial month's tenancy and we would have to give a month notice on the last day of the month, or that may have been the first of the month. It's been a while and I don't remember. We said that would be fine and we understood that he was under no obligation to accept our offer to give our 1 month's notice on any other date than the last day of the month. Fast forward to our closing date in September, where everything went smoothly and we became homeowners. We waited until the last day of the month to give the manager our written notice and October's rent. She accepted it and we planned to be out on the last day of October. Had the landlord accepted our offer, we would have moved our butts to get out of there immediately after closing, but since he wouldn't budge, we decided to take our time. The new place was about 3 miles from our apartment and we decided that instead of hiring someone to move everything, we would take a few boxes over every day and then hire movers during the last week to move the big heavy stuff. That worked out pretty well as we had time to organize as we moved and we saved some money by not having the movers pack and transport everything we owned. The owner had 6 units where we were, as well as other properties around town. In the early part of October, one of our neighbors told us that the owner was redoing the floors in all of the units. He had hired a crew to move furniture, remove the carpet and linoleum and replace it with pergo or some other laminate flooring. It was quite a job since most of us had lived there for years and each unit was 2 floors and about 1,200 square feet. Right after we heard this from the neighbor, the manager came over and asked if they could have access to our unit now so that the flooring could be replaced by the crew. She said the owner wanted to have the unit ready for a new tenant on the 1st of November. We said that this would be impossible since we were in the process of moving and he can have access to our unit on the date he had insisted on since he wouldn't be flexible with our needs. We had scheduled a professional cleaner to come in on October 31st. And they will be done by 5 PM so he can have access then. Had they accepted our offer, we would have been out of there about 2 weeks earlier and we would have been much more cooperative about letting the flooring crew in to redo the floors. The manager said the owner was not happy. It sounded like he would lose some money since the unit wouldn't be ready on the 1st for new tenants and he would have to get the flooring crew back. But there really wasn't much he could do at this point.